All righty. All righty. All righty, everyone. And I hope all of our participants are able to hear us. And if you can't, please let us know. All righty, everyone. And I hope participants are able to hear us. And if you can't, you're not getting the feedback, are you? All righty, everyone. All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Sherman Jenkins. I am the chairman of the board of the Quad County African American Chamber. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Sherman Jenkins.
We are getting feedback, Sherman.
Chairman of the board of the Quad County African American Chamber. And sorry about that. We hope that you find this webinar informative and inspiring. And let me tell you a little bit about the Quad County African American Chamber. In 1993, in February 1993, several African American business owners in Aurora, Illinois, began meeting to discuss ways to increase the number of African American businesses and help existing African American businesses. The decision was made to form a chamber of commerce that would focus on issues relevant to African American businesses and pave the way to an eventual partnering with other chambers that were in existence at that time. In the 28 years of the chamber's existence, many African American businesses have been helped through workshops, seminars, grants, loans, and scholarships to African American high school and college students. The chamber covers the counties of Kane, Kendall, DuPage, and Will, and continues to enhance the commercial environment and improve the marketing opportunities that result in high-performing, profitable African American businesses in the Quad counties. As a way to acknowledge that our members are important to the success of the Quad County areas, we want to spotlight youth development systems. And to do that, we have Ms. Emily Ferguson to provide a brief overview of youth development systems that is new to the Quad County African American Chamber, but they bring a wealth of information, and Ms. Ferguson is going to tell you a little bit about them. Ms. Ferguson, you have the mic.
Hi, thank you so much. We're proud members of the Chamber, very glad to be a member. Youth Development Systems operates the Fun with Chess learning system in a fun, interactive learning environment. The game of chess is highly effective in developing critical thinking skills and in improving focus and concentration. Our patent pending beginning chessboard is extremely helpful for those learning the game. The Fun with Chess learning system provides chess training for youth through school systems and other organizations. And in fact, we'll be piloting a program this year with the Quad County Chamber. We're also partnering with the Kenyan chess authorities to pilot the Fun with Chess learning system in 47 Kenyan schools. In addition to English, we're making lessons available in Spanish for our Hispanic students and in Swahili for our Kenyan students. We'll be scheduling competitions with these students in the United States, Kenya, and Latin America online. The students the system uses culturally diverse avatars for learning modules. These videos can be used with or without captions to assist students in learning how to play the game. Program features can also accommodate those students with memory and other learning challenges. And of course, we use artificial intelligence to assist in training students in chess rules and tactics. There is more information available, of course, on our website, and I'll put that information in the chat, but it's www.funwithchess.com. And by going online, you can learn how to provide your students with the Fun with Chess Learning Advantage, and of course, set yourself up for a demo. So thank you so much, Chamber. And I know this is going to be an informative session, and I'm looking forward to it.
All righty. Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. And again, welcome to the Quad County African American Chamber. Now let's get started. Artificial intelligence, or AI, affects us daily, whether you want to believe it or not. In today's webinar, the Quad County African American Chamber wants you to know why it is useful for small businesses to look at AI through the lens of business capabilities, rather than technologies and how AI can support various business needs. With us today and kicking off our webinar is our speaker, who will provide an overview, and that is Mr. Michael Pegues. He is the Vice Chair of the Quad County African American Chamber and Chief Information Officer for the City of Aurora. Mr. Pegues was appointed by Mayor Richard C. Irvin as the first ever African American Chief Information Officer for the City of Aurora, and that was in June of 2017. In 2018, Mike led the charge to have the City of Aurora named as a finalist for the Smart Cities Council Readiness Challenge 2018 and top 100 finalists for the Chicago Innovation Awards in 2018. In partnership with Smart Cities Connect, Smart Cities Connect Foundation, and US Ignite, which annually recognize global smart projects, honoring the most innovative and influential work. So we are in for a treat, as we mentioned before, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pegues, who is going to give us a little overview and then take us further into our program.
Thank you, Chairman Jenkins. And I want to say good afternoon to the panelists and also to our participants out there. So being a technology professional, I'll try to keep this, away from technology and more from a business perspective. I know as technology professionals, we tend to kind of like gravitate to the tech. But one of the things that, we're going to kind of dive in today, and I want to kind of just set the stage. We're talking about artificial intelligence, and I know it's a very broad subject, right? But what we're looking at trying to understand is trying to uncover how, artificial intelligence can be used to identify those different business opportunities. I think one of the challenges are, and I'm going to try to narrow this down, is that there are so many different industries and so many different business domains that it's really kind of hard to kind of stay focused, right? And one of the things that, we all talk about today in terms of artificial intelligence and how we can use data to kind of leverage, different business opportunities. And I think my friend Madhu, who's one of the panelists today, she had just said before we started, data is the problem, but it's also the solution, right? So you kind of think about that in a very kind of abstract way, and you said, how can I actually, develop strategies, identify these different opportunities, or what are the use cases that say for me in my business, right? And one of the challenges is that you have so many different domains, whether it can be banking, it can be retail, right? It can be transportation, it can be the public sector, it can be smart cities, it can be non-for-profits, and it goes on and on and on. And what I'm going to attempt to do here today is kind of set the stage in terms of helping you to kind of identify and actually to strategize how you can use artificial intelligence in your particular area, right, to have business value, right? So just kind of bear with me with regards to this. But one of the things I do want to kind of lean back on, and I'm going to just take about 4 or 5 minutes here, and I'm going to show a short video about 4 minutes or so to kind of set the stage in terms of what are the different use cases and applications in these different areas. So if I may, let me just share my screen here real quick. Can everyone see this?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. And again, I would give special thanks to Gardner Research for this. I'm a big advocate of Gardner. So I hope you find this useful and impactful.
Hi, this is Alex Linden from Gardner's Data and Analytics team. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to a new type of Gartner research that we're calling use case prisms. I will discuss how these use case prisms allow to navigate and prioritize use cases and how they can drive your project decision making in the artificial intelligence space. One of the key questions clients most often ask is, how can AI help me with my business problems? And this question is typically answered by showing them a list of use cases, here, for example, for the B2B sales domain. While we think such lists are certainly great, they don't really tell you where to start or which use cases might be more important than others or easier to start with. That's exactly why we developed the use case prism, where use cases are visually presented according to the estimated business value and feasibility. By now, the prism methodology has been adopted across Gartner by more than 18 teams of leading domain analysts. Here are a few examples and see more in the written research. Essentially, use case prisms are very close to the simple risk return charts you know from investment banking. But we thought it's a bit weird to see the top or bottom use cases positioned in the upper left or lower right. So we decided to rotate the chart. And also, instead of risk, we choose feasibility as the other axis. Which means the top use cases now really show up at the top. But it should be really rare to find many use cases here. After all, where in the real world would you expect highest possible returns for lowest possible risks, right? The bottom line is you better have great reasons not to invest here. You might have either outsourced this or you already invested in those use cases. That's fine. The right corner is where the low-hanging fruits are hiding out. Highly feasible, yet still decent value. The message here is to consider investing. Opportunistic, of course. The bottom corner is kind of the money pit, and you should have really good reasons to invest in anything that shows up here because of low feasibility and very low business value. The left corner is where you find the cutting-edge projects that offer great return, but also have the greatest risk. You should probably really proceed only with caution here, if at all. And make sure you have considered those use cases in the middle beforehand. These are really great use cases. Now, the overall Prism infographic includes two more parts. First is the pipeline that maps all the use cases against business areas to give clients a better orientation. But it also helps with prioritization because you can see, for example, which use cases improve marketing operations or here, customer service. Obviously, the exact nature of the pipeline will vary by domain. And the second part is a scorecard. Actually, two scorecards, one for business value and another for feasibility, which are right at the core driving the use case placements. And you can see here the criteria that the domain analyst chose for assessing the business value and feasibility for the B2B sales use cases. And for different domains, those evaluation criteria, of course, will vary. Here's an example from the insurance prism. In summary, use case prisms were meant to drive further engagement and consensus amongst different stakeholders. They are simple enough to be consumed by business and technical audiences alike, and they allow significantly more information to be captured than a simple list of use cases. We believe these use case prisms can become a useful part in any AI strategy, as they tell you how to prioritize various use cases. So finally, we hope this has piqued your interest and that you will find a use case prism that fits your domain of interest. If not, please let us know.
So let me stop sharing here. Okay, is that down? All right. Okay, so probably thinking, I mean, that's very kind of high level, kind of 50,000 foot. But I mean, the objective of there is to kind of, you know, have each individual who's actually participating on this kind of take a step back from the tree so you can see the forest. Because without trying to understand what are the applicable use cases, it's going to be very difficult to have that conversation when you go to the next level. You know, so if we take kind of retail industry, for example, we start talking about artificial intelligence and you say, how can I use artificial intelligence for my business? You know, I have a beauty supply store, right? So from my perspective, you know, you can look at that. So how can I use artificial intelligence to do social media monitoring? how can I also understand, what my customers are thinking in terms of the sentiment analysis? I could potentially even use it for my subscription services, right? Another conversation we always talk about, like we was talking about with Lester earlier, is in terms of cybersecurity. You start thinking about fraud and threat detection, right? From in-store, environmental management and so on. So there's a lot of different use cases. And what the video is trying to demonstrate, it says, where can I get the most value in terms of those different use cases and where I need to start, right? But you need to strategize before you can go execute, right? Again, I know this is just kind of a teaser, but also at a high level to get you kind of thinking about what are those business opportunities. But I would also say to Chairman Jenkins that what I would also recommend is that if anyone that's actually on, the webinar today finds this interesting, and I would like for them to provide some feedback, that maybe we can look at potentially even kind of, deep diving into specific domains, whether it's transportation, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's, customer service, non-for-profits, and really starting to kind of get down to that next level to say, what are those areas, right? And then we can engage with the participants on, see how we can move that forward. So with that, I hope that's kind of provided you a perspective and also some ideal in terms of, how you can basically, use artificial intelligence to kind of, drive your business in those different industries. And thank you very much for allowing me to come in here, and pass it back to you, Chairman Jenkins.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Vegas. And at this point now, I'm going to introduce our panel moderator. He is Mr. Alan K. Wright, who is Vice President, Wintrust Bank, NA, out of River North, Streeterville in Chicago. Wintrust is a big supporter and a longtime member of the Quad County African American Chamber. And so they sent one of their top dogs to help us make this happen. And so he's an experienced leader with a demonstrated history of working in the banking industry, skilled in commercial lending, banking, sales, credit analysis, and branch management. He's strong sales and professional and corporate change manager. He's a person that many know that makes things happen. And so we are glad that he was able to be with us today as part of with Wintrust Bank and serve as our panel moderator. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wright to take it away.
Thank you so much. We're such big supporters and truly believe in the Quad County African American Chamber of Commerce, as we've been there for a long time. So I'm just pleased that and so amazed that you and humbled that we're allowed to be here today. And I want to take this time to really just let you know that Wintrust we completely support, and we'll be there in the future as well. But I'll move on to our wonderful panel guest that we have today. The first panelist that we have up today is Mr. Lester McCarroll. Lester is a principal of strategy and business development at Data Defenders LLC. His responsibilities include building and managing data operations. Lester has enjoyed a 20-year corporate career that spanned across AT&T, Bell Laboratories, and Motorola, where he rose up to vice president. During his tenure at Motorola, international strategy and Motorola, Lester served in several roles. One of those roles were marketing, product planning. Another was international strategies, and then operations, country management, and coordination, and wireless infrastructure, and feature sets for telecommunication carriers, software development processes, and diversity market, and as well as employee development. He's receiving electrical engineering degrees from the Illinois Institute of Technology and Stanford University. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Lester McCarroll. Then next up, we have distinguished panelist, Maju Garlanca. Maju is the CEO of Alwyn Corporation based in Herndon, Virginia. We've got with us a little bit about her. Alwyn Corporation is a leading in the development of innovative software products, and providing technology solutions to customers across public and private sectors, which include transportation, financial domains. Maju also is the founder of Next Step Foundation, which is an organization established to enable the access to education for underprivileged children and youth. Additionally, she's a board member of the Dulles Regional Chamber of Commerce and an advisory board member of the Data Analytics and Engineering Program at George Mason University in Fairfax. So we welcome you, Maju, to the panel. Then finally, we have Ralph Kindred. Ralph is a public sector partner with, I want to say this right, Slalom Consulting LLC. Moreover, he's also a 20+ year public sector leader in strategy, technology, and public policy consulting across the federal, state, and local governmental levels, education and healthcare organizations as well. And he has a proven record of accomplishment and delivering results for both clients and internal teams. Also, leading mission-driven digital government modernization programs, Ralph has planned and driven large-scale innovation, technology adaptation to improve program outcomes and service delivery. Ralph additionally has a Juris Doctorate degree from the University of the Pacific McGeorge School of Law and a Master's in Business Administration from the University of San Francisco. We welcome Ralph to the panel. So with that being said, all of you amazing people in the business intelligence, or as we call it, or artificial intelligence domain, we'll jump right in. Why is AI important to a small business particularly?
Yeah, I'm happy to weigh in on that. Alan, thank you again for having me tonight. AI is an important technology. AI has been actually been called, artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, but generally it's been viewed as a general purpose technology, one that can really change the whole landscape of business, introduce new business models, innovation. I often tell people to think about Amazon. Amazon is probably one of the most notable companies who've really used and leveraged AI to really disrupt industries, literally disrupt industries. They started years ago, selling books online. People thought, why were they doing that there? But now they've become this, gargantuan online retailer competing with the likes of, of Walmart, a global retailer. But again, they've leveraged AI and AI technology to accomplish that through gathering data, improving the systems. So AI definitely is a disruptive technology that all businesses, small, medium, large, need to pay attention to.
So I'd say that AI is to 2020 or 2021 what internet was to the late 80s and 90s, right? So it's almost like we are at a pivotal point, I think an inflection point where whoever gets on the bandwagon first will have a clear competitive advantage because you are competing with other companies that have access to that technology. So being on that bandwagon is important, particularly early.
I'll add my perspective. First of all, I'd like to thank Chairman Jenkins for inviting me to participate in the panel. The perspective I'll come from is looking at one of the biggest cost line items for small businesses is labor. And much of the labor in a small business is making decisions, is gathering information, it's learning about customers. There's a lot of different functions that are part of running a small business that are very expensive if you do them to the scale that you need to. So as a small business, when you begin to allow computers to make those decisions, to gather forecasts, to gather information, to gather intelligence, all of those functions, employing computers to do them using AI is a way to reduce costs. And so small businesses can leverage, to the extent that they can leverage AI, they put themselves in a position to run a more cost-effective operations, much more cost-effective planning, a much more cost-effective marketing and sales and customer care, and much more productive and effective back office as well.
Thank you so much for that. Lester, you touched on a point. You said in particular about how it can be cost effective, how you can save costs. How, as a small business, do I start to get engaged in the AI space?
You know, it's interesting how what people consider artificial intelligence today versus what people considered artificial intelligence decades ago. Google Alerts is an example of an intelligent agent that everyone has access to today. Many, because it's so common, don't no longer consider that to be artificial intelligence, but it is an intelligent agent. And a small business can leverage that very simple intelligent agent to gather intelligence, to feed them the relevant intelligence they need about certain industries, certain companies, those types of things. And so that's a way to get started. There's some other techniques and frameworks that I would suggest that we'll go into as the discussion continue. But I think that's a very simple way for a small business to get started today, that they can begin to leverage Google Alerts and other types of agents very similar to that.
So to piggyback on that, like Lester was saying, a lot of us are indirect users of AI without even realizing it. Like if you're setting up a Facebook campaign as a small business, now that is something that fits into a lot of small business budgets. That is indirectly leveraging AI. Another example that we actually helped implement for a solopreneur who is in the therapy and counseling business is that a lot of times, I mean, her work is essentially one-on-one with patients, but she also needs to be able to either staff her office with someone who can simply answer questions like, what are the services you provide? Do you do teen counseling? Do you do marriage counseling? Different kinds of things which are repetitive and can very easily be answered by a chatbot, for example. What's your fee structure like? Do you accept insurance? So a lot of those things we helped her automate with a chatbot so that she could focus on delivering the service to her patients while she's able to, much like Lester was saying, decrease costs in her business by implementing an intelligent chatbot. That's one example.
And the great part about AI that's available today through vendors like Amazon or Microsoft or Google is that they're generally available. They're on their platform. So again, you don't need to be a computer scientist or to be a doctorate or a data scientist to be able to leverage AI for your business. You can actually, by being a subscriber to these technologies, to these platforms, leverage AI and AI use cases to automate parts of your business. I love the example Matt talked about in terms of the chatbot. That's a very easy, simple version of AI that we engage in sometimes without even knowing it. We're calling into a call center, and it's using an AI that's on the front end of that, that's kind of helping to siphon off that call volume and reserving the hard calls for, again, human agents on the back end of that. So again, that's something that's very simple that again, small business can leverage to increase their reach, to leverage the resources more efficiently, more effectively, and become more competitive.
Mm-hmm. And let me piggyback on what Ralph says to really make it plain to the small business entrepreneur that's listening to this discussion. Envision a room full of call center staff and how expensive that is, and how much the larger businesses have an advantage over you because they can afford that room full of people. Now envision that same capability and capacity being leveraged by a small business that has chatbots playing the same role as that room full of people. There's still an expense, but it's at a fraction of the cost of that human resource expense.
I think the other thing, and maybe you're going to get to this, Alan, that's important to note, that AI is really, one in a set of digital technologies, and it's actually foundational digital technologies, what will enable one to have access to AI technology, to digitize processes, digitize services, to take that, to automate that again, that human interaction, automate that in a digital fashion, so you can actually scale that, and really now it becomes a game changer, your ability to compete with much larger players and potentially disruptive in terms of the dynamics of competition.
So you all have mentioned having the extra ability to maybe disrupt the market. You've mentioned it multiple times, and depending on your innovation, obviously that can make a difference. But let's say I'm that small business that I'm not quite ready to disrupt the market, but I need to know a little bit more. So I want to use some AI to collect analytics. What are some of the ways that you've seen commonly used to advance analytics as we go forward in data collection with AI?
One of the things that most businesses, small, medium, or large, actually, they have a website. So just the analytics that you can actually gather, on your website in terms of your traffic, where are your users actually going, how long are they staying, what are they clicking on, what are they buying, how much time they're spending on there, all that data that can be used in an AI type of a way to increase, the effectiveness of what you're actually presenting, to know what users are actually responding to. You can do we call A/B testing, test different variants of marketing campaigns on your website and see which ones your customers are responding to more or clicking on more and buying more from. And begin leveraging that data, learning from those customer interactions vis-a-vis the analytics you're gathering can help you to really, again, apply AI technology to improve your service offering, have greater reach to a greater, more defined group of customers who are like the ones who are buying your product or services.
I'll piggyback on that. If you own a small business today and you have a website, you already have a ton of data, as Ralph pointed out. So envision that you hired a department of 10 to 20 people to analyze that data, to help you make decisions about where folks are going, what folks are responding to, what people are clicking on. There are intelligent agents right now and analytics that will do all of that for you, so you don't need that expense. But the thing is that many small businesses have websites and they don't take advantage of those analytics. They don't take advantage of that virtual staff that's already there. Now it's not always free, but there's an incremental cost that can really give you a significant scale of value in using some of those tools that exist today. And by the way, many of those tools aren't necessarily labeled artificial intelligence, but that's exactly what they are.
Completely understood. Maju, any take on that?
Yeah, so I would actually say that from a use case perspective, if you look at what Gartner presented, I was just looking at how a small business can take advantage of building a use case. One example that was out there was competition and what they're doing, right? So you can also use AI, and we're actually implementing a project right now that could look at data that's generally available on competitor pricing. And basically the ability to crunch large volumes of data is what you get. And then you're able to price more competitively and win bids. So it really depends on the nature of the business, whether these are businesses that are responding to RFPs, RFQs, stuff like that.
So now let's talk forward sales. So I've got a new business. What my business matters to me the most is how I can affect my sales. Whether I'm affecting those sales, using more data or information, or whatever the case may be. What are some of the examples that you've seen with using the business intelligence or advanced intelligence that has helped to increase sales for your clients?
One example I love thinking about is Facebook. Facebook, on the surface, they're a platform that's free for everyone to use. But what Facebook is actually doing is gathering data, about users and their habits, their preferences, their networks, and what they buy, what they sell, even the sentiments, what they're commenting on. But they're taking that data, and again, through, as Madhu said, through AI, taking that data, analyzing it, and selling that data to marketers, to other marketers, to know how to sell to you in a very defined micro-targeted type of a way. And so again, it can make them much more effective as a seller, that I know exactly who I'm selling to, what they buy, when they buy, how they buy, why they buy. So again, I can really streamline my costs and improve the effectiveness of my sales by applying data from AI, training my AI engine to constantly be refining that data to micro-target my audiences for my sales campaigns.
Yeah, so in this context, I can give the example of my foundation. We did a fundraiser. A lot of times, smaller foundations depend on a few passionate donors, right? So what we experimented with was we were doing a fundraiser. We literally started the Facebook page at that time, and started with a really small campaign. And it was amazing to see how many people responded and have been following that page since then. So in this case, what we wanted was to really spread the word about what the foundation was doing, which is, education for everyone. That's really where we want to be, and an enabler in that education for everyone paradigm. But we just wanted to share our story, and it was amazing to see how many people collected. So if anyone has a small business, this is leveraging AI again to reach out to places you would not have been able to otherwise. You'd have to run a phone campaign, and it would just be, very, very expensive.
There's another form of AI that most folks experience these days if you have a Netflix account or an Amazon account. And those are the personalized recommendations you get. You think about Facebook and Instagram, and your discussions on there are magnets for ads that companies are going to serve to you, because they know that you are interested in buying shoes or going to a movie or traveling and things of that nature. Well, when you look at Amazon and Netflix, they're looking at what you're searching on. They're looking at your buying patterns. They're looking at your subscription patterns and making specific recommendations to you, right? So that whole that space of personalized recommendations will increasingly see tools that are available for smaller businesses to begin to leverage that type of capability.
All right. Now, you all know I'm in banking, right? So we definitely use AI for a ton of things. Most recently, just a version called Salesforce. We're switching up a CRM system, a customer relationship management system, to I obviously advanced anti-money laundering data. So if I'm a small business, how can I hedge my risks using AI?
Lester, we would love to hear from you on cybersecurity aspects.
Yes, that was your window, Lester.
All right. Well, I think from the standpoint of AI, we have the types of services we call managed detection and response. Those managed detection and response. If you look at the cybersecurity, traditional cybersecurity antivirus, those types of tools would look for specific signatures, specific threats that were known threats. And if you see this signature, it means that there's an active threat against your system. That's advanced now, to where our systems now are so advanced that they can understand the behavior, the normal behavior of your systems, the normal behavior of your networks, the normal behavior of transactions, understand all of those behaviors. And when that behavior changes, our services get very suspicious and begin to raise flags that there's a potential threat or there's a potential attack underway. And we can respond with that in an automated fashion, as well as in a human fashion. So that's a way to begin to address the risk that's inherent in the kind of systems that you've employed in your business.
So Alan, I'm happy to share, thank you, Lester. I'm happy to share what we are doing now in terms of hedging financial risk. So we are an IT services company. We respond to requests for proposals. And when we respond to proposals that are multi-year, one of the key elements in there is how do you project labor rates over the next few years? Because I know companies that have won contracts, but sometimes are unable to fulfill them because the labor market would have changed significantly. So what we're doing is essentially using big data that's available, publicly available data, to see how we can develop a model to predict labor rates. And that can be a huge competitive advantage, as well as help us mitigate risk where we get into a multi-year contract and are unable to essentially make the projected margins. So again, depending on the business, the risk mitigation could be different.
So with all of the different analytics that go into that, or different variants that go into projecting something like the labor rate, I'm a Keynesian, so I'm a little more, you are at a certain place, but with that being the case, how does it factor in all of those socioeconomic factors? Like, what things do you program it to look for, or what are triggers for it that go into becoming variables in that equation?
Okay. So with traditional data analytics, you are going in with the hypothesis of these are the factors that I want to evaluate. The beauty and power of AI is that you can take a lot of data and it can actually rank features for you depending on how you use the algorithm. So there could be 200 features or factors that affect the outcome. And that is what makes AI or machine learning algorithms powerful, that they can actually handle multiple variables and rank them, and maybe we only focus on the top 3, the top 10. It really depends on the problem that we're looking to solve. Like one analysis that we did for a research project had to do with mental illnesses and patient outcomes related to lung cancer. In that case, there could be so many different forms of mental illnesses that are grouped into different categories. So we essentially threw data and various algorithms to come up with, as far as possible, a precise answer and a prediction for what their hospital stay duration may be. So this is an example of where you could have 20 or 25 factors, or maybe even more, like hundreds of factors, but the algorithm will help you bubble up those that are relevant and most important.
I'm sorry I left you out of the last one, Ralph. Feel free to jump in on that.
No, absolutely. I love that example that Mahu just gave, because again, large data sets, like those that are available from the Bureau of Labor Statistics or different unemployment agencies, they collect all this data around employment trends, job projections, labor rates. And again, if you had to try to mine through all the data on your own, it would take a data scientist, it would take or a large number of staff to do that. But with AI technology, in fact, we call it augmented intelligence, not just artificial intelligence. We're going to augment human intelligence by rapidly deploying these AI models, these algorithms to analyze and sift through that data to extrapolate out of that the variables you need, in this case here, to project multi-year labor rates. But again, AI technology can do that, and do that quickly. The processing and computing power behind AI can do that much more quickly, efficiently, cost effectively. So in a way that allows a small business to compete with large organizations, large companies, twice the size, twice the dollar, the revenue value that they might have.
Now we talk about competing with markets of scale and how it gives us an advantage by using artificial intelligence. So let's say I'm a small company, or even a big box. Let's turn the shoe around. So I'm a big box company. How can I use AI to, for instance, project my inventory, or to know what triggers are going on in my inventory if I'm not getting turns of my inventory, if it's sitting there? What are some of the different ways that I can use AI to affect essentially my cost management?
You can set up an AI algorithm to actually, to scan for new orders, or scan for the lowest prices, across, a wide variety of vendors, looking for the lowest price. And sometimes fluctuate. So
Price.
train the AI to look for, again, your filter price scenarios. And when it captures that, and actually with smart contract to automatically execute, a transaction on your behalf. So again, AI technology can be used in that particular way to really expedite, and researching around the clock, looking for the cheapest price, best product available for your scenario.
All right, so we actually have the panel live, so we have questions from the audience. So panelists, we have a question. Let's see. Our first question from the audience is, as a small business owner with a website and an established customer base, what steps do you recommend I start to use or to start using the data already available to me to improve my business? Just something that you touched on earlier that, we maybe don't use it enough, or Lester touched on as well. So you want to start there, Lester? Start us off with that then?
Yeah, I think, whether you use, if you're a small business, again, I'm speaking to the small business entrepreneur has gotten started, it's got a website. Many of them use tools like GoDaddy and Wix and other mechanisms to develop the website, or perhaps you had someone else develop your website. The key is going to look for their analytical tools, because many of them, separately from your subscription to your web hosting subscription, separately from that, there's also analytical tools that all of them provide on it. So I would start with investigating those tools and understanding not only the costs, but understanding the kind of information that they will give you. There's a rich set of reports that they will run and provide for you on a periodic basis or on demand that can give you a lot of insights in terms of the type of people that are coming to your website, where they live, their age, their demographics, their buying patterns. There's a lot of information that's already available. So I would start with looking at your web host subscription and going to find the set of analytical tools and reports that are available to them. That's a very, very easy first step.
And then use that data to design future marketing campaigns, right? That are much more personalized, maybe much more targeted.
That's right.
Absolutely. Once you know who you have, then you know what you want to go after or where your success lies.
Right.
And a lot of times the small businesses, I see my customers, they don't know where their success lies. Sometimes we think it's dumb luck, but it really, there's an algorithm for that. That's kind of my motto. But so we have another question from the panel. Are companies like Constant Contact, where are they a part of the AI train? You want to take that, Maj?
I haven't personally used Constant Contact. I assume it's more of like an email marketing platform, right? So I'm not aware of whether they use any built-in AI patterns to reach out to customers.
Sure, I can tell you how they employ AI in Constant Contact, because again, it is an email kind of marketing tool. Just sending out your newsletters, your communication, your promotions campaigns for your various products or services. But what you're interested in, are people reading it? Who's clicking on it? How soon are they clicking on it? Where are they hovering on a particular page? Did they like it? Did they refer to someone else? Constant Contact is gathering all that information, all that AI, all that data, processing it through its AI engines. And as Lester said, part of the analytics tool can provide that back to you to give you more insights in terms of how effective is your messaging, how effective is your reach, how much stickiness is your messaging have, and again, how much influence is it reverberating in the social sphere? Are people retweeting or forwarding that message to others? So again, you're gathering all this data, and they're gathering this data on your behalf, they can actually make your campaigns much more effective. But again, that is how they're leveraging AI components in their digital platform.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. Whether you're using Constant Contact or MailChimp or the email tools that your web host provides, all of them will track who opened, who engaged with your email, who shared your email. They'll provide all of those types of things. And it allows you to then zoom in on the people most likely to do business with you. Because if you continue to talk, if you send out 500 emails and you continue to talk to all 500, regardless of what actions they've taken, that's a waste of time and money. But if you know that 25 people have opened it and 5 people have forwarded it, then it makes sense to begin to engage those 25 and those 5. And it helps you save a lot of time, because it's all about time to revenue, right? You want your campaign to bear fruit as quickly as possible, and those tools will help you do that.
Now, you guys mentioned those wonderful ways, but let's say I'm a novice. Do I need to hire a professional to interpret that data for me? Or to interpret what I need to be looking for in order to, I know my sales campaign is going on, for instance, and I'm not receiving a response from it. I'm sending out those 500 emails. My engagement's low and it's consistently declining. Do I need to hire someone to physically tell me, hey, something you're doing, this is what you need to do different, or something's wrong here, to interpret what other data I'm not understanding?
There are people who specialize in that aspect of helping you interpret this type of information. And quite frankly, everyone is not as technologically capable as the people on this screen. And so I recognize that there are some of the small businesses that we talk to that might need to hire somebody to help. But these constant contacts and MailChimps, they know that those are some of their customers as well. So they make it very easy to begin to get started. And the reason we suggest getting started without necessarily hiring somebody initially is so that you can understand what questions to ask, right? Hiring someone without taking dipping your toe in the water initially may lead you to spending a lot of money on consultants who don't necessarily have your best interests in mind. But if you know the right questions to ask, if you've dipped your toe in the water and there's specific things that you don't understand, then you can go to that consultant with those specific questions and begin to get some traction. And then over time, as your business grows, you might be able to afford to bring them in to handle that part of the analysis for you.
Absolutely. So we've got another question from the audience saying, I'm a real estate agent. How do I leverage AI to market and sell my clients' properties?
I love this question as well from a real estate agent perspective, because as a real estate agent, not only are you representing properties, but also you're looking for properties on behalf of your clients. And so again, as you have clients sign up, as you send them property that they indicate what they like, the features of the price, the location, all the different components of what they actually like, you can use that information then to build a search algorithm to go out and find properties personalized to their particular searching and criteria. And you can do that in personalized for each and every one of your clients. So you can get a faster and a more broader reach in selecting the properties that corresponds to their preferences. So you can increase, again, your effectiveness in serving your clients faster.
And it also helps with the negotiation process, because once you've done those types of searches, you can have access to the data that represents all of the transactions that are relevant to comparable deals in that area, and it puts you in a better position to help your client negotiate.
We have another question from the audience, which is, is the learning and development community in step with our growing AI reality? Are companies training staff on AI?
I would say absolutely yes. Like I mentioned before, we work closely with universities that are local to the region. And we set up collaborative projects called capstone programs. And by doing that, what we do is we define a real world problem. We guide the students through actually solving the real world problem so that they are ready for industry. Learning in the classroom is important because it gives them the tools, but we also show them how to use those tools in real industry. So when they do start their job, they're ready. As we all know, there is a shortage of tech talent generally all over the country. So I think as business owners, we should all try to do what we can by either like having interns or engaging with the universities to get them ready. And now I know that middle schoolers, high schoolers, a lot of them are learning Python, learning a lot of software programming languages that are related to AI. So definitely there are more and more students gravitating towards that. And I think as entrepreneurs, we need to encourage that.
Okay. All right. We have another question from the audience. I know, Ralph, if you want to take this one, which kind of gets back. Well, actually, it's kind of your forte, Lester. But can we use AI to help identify the behavior of potentially malicious software programs? As we've been hearing all this stuff about hacks going on right now.
Hey, just a quick note, Alan. Trust me that there's not a topic that comes up that's not in Ralph's wheelhouse. But now, having said that, absolutely yes, AI can be used to identify the behavior of potentially malicious software programs in two ways. One, there are known malicious software programs. That intelligence is actively shared across a number of venues and across a number of services and across a number of software platforms. So known malicious software programs, that behavior is known and it's recognized, and AI can help stop that. But the other piece is that if I can use AI, if I can use my platform to understand the normal behavior of your system, and I can learn what the normal behavior looks like over time, I can begin to detect when things are beginning to veer off that norm, and discover a new threat that no one has seen before, and then I can then share that threat to that community of threat intelligence to help prevent the spread of that threat. But we have to deploy these types of AI platforms in a way that it's the platforms that are spreading that intelligence and helps to prevent them, and not just the news media.
It's interesting. You're just to add to what Lester said. I totally agree. But oftentimes, these malicious software programs are AI. They're chatbots. They're these agents, right, bots that are being deployed by, again, nefarious people to attack, your website or program, trying to, again, to hack, do bad things. And so AI technology can actually detect, as Lester said, detect where they're coming from. Are they coming from Russia or from China, from a foreign country? Are they again a barrage of attacks targeted trying to penetrate something? So the behaviors, where they're coming from, what they're doing, how frequent they're doing it, really are some of the things that can be AI can be trained to detect, and not only detect, then prevent, to actually take action against in an automated way. Threat prevention. So again, as you see these things occurring, you can have your AI trained and then to implement various scenarios to kind of shut that down, to prevent that from doing further harm.
Right. So I'll direct our next question over to Maju, actually, which gets back under the learning and development kind of portion of things. And the question is, what are some of the AI tools that I can use to help me coach my small sales team?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think that really depends on the nature of the sale. Like, is it services? Is it product? I'd be happy to have a little more of an one-on-one conversation if that's something that they want, so that I can understand a little bit about the domain. The reason I say that is if it's a business like mine where you're selling services, then competitive pricing, for example, is one area where you can actually use some tools that are out there to crunch data and come up with a solid pricing model, right? So it really depends on the domain, and that is generally true of AI. It can be very different from healthcare to finance to transportation and product and service.
Yeah, just kind of depends on the regression model you're trying to put together in it, Yeah. God knows I've built tons of those. But so we talked a little bit about chatbots earlier. Can the panelists, can all of you elaborate on that?
I'll start that conversation. So imagine today that Alan is trying to buy something from my website, and I'm on the other, and he hits a button that says "Chat with Representative." Okay. In the past, when he clicked that button, it would be directed to, let's say it's me, right? And so I would have a messaging session with Alan one-on-one, answering his questions about the products or listening to his complaints about the poor service that I've delivered to Alan that he's irate about. Well, a chatbot is an intelligent agent that replaces that human interaction. And it's intelligent enough to be able to understand from a natural language processing standpoint, either by voice or by text. It can understand your question and engage in a conversation with you to help direct you to your answer. Now, there are some that are very rudimentary and go by a certain very simple script tree, and then they run out of room at some point, and then they have to escalate to a human. But the advanced chatbots of today are able to do enough natural language processing and have an elaborate enough knowledge base to be able to really engage you in a very effective way, such that the person might not know that they're talking to a chatbot. But those are getting more and more advanced. And I'm sure Ralph and Madhu can elaborate even further.
I love this question because it really highlights the fact that there are different types of AI. So conversational AI as natural language processing, there's image processing AI. But again, the intent of conversational or chatbot is to really simulate a human interaction dialogue. And again, it can be something very simple as scripting, asking a question with pre-programmed responses based upon being able to understand the question you're putting forward and to deliver a response. Think about, we engage in conversational AI almost every day. I'm sure all of us do. If you have Alexa, if you have Siri, if you have Cortana, all those are really conversational AI technologies that are being deployed to really simulate a human interaction, but it really is just very intelligent. Again, they've matured. And the AI component of this comes to the fact that those are constantly being retrained, taking in more questions, developing responses to be able to, so again, become this cycle of really improving the effectiveness of those AI technology to the point you don't even know that you're not talking to a real person. Because again, they're responding, delivering the information you need in a real-time way.
And part of the power of the chatbot is in the traditional example that I gave, we will store that conversation, right? And I will have to do some analysis to report that conversation back, and so that knowledge base is we've augmented that knowledge base with that conversation based on what I'm able to extract. But with a chatbot, it basically learns all of the different variations that a human being couldn't quite understand and couldn't quite extract from that conversation. So the learning that a chatbot will do will be orders of magnitude higher than what a human being could potentially comprehend and extract.
And always respond patiently, right? So there is no emotional fatigue on the part of the chatbot, which I'm sure anybody who's worked in a CSR role would appreciate.
All right. I'm going to keep us honest on our time. We're at about 6:30. So we're going to exclusively go to questions from the audience. Are there any questions in the audience out there for our distinguished panelists? Let's see what we have in the chat box here. All right, we'll give them some time. Meanwhile, we'll dig more into some of my questions. Being a banker, we really see a lot of different things. We try to automate, if we will, as much as we can, but a lot of times we can't. What do you find people to see being their biggest challenge towards getting AI automation? Are we still creating new AI automations, or have we kind of eclipsed? Have we touched it all?
No. Again, another question I really love it. If you have Alexa, you'll see Alexa keeps adding, new, things that it can actually do. It's learning and new services it can actually offer. These are automations that it's actually doing. Alexa, play me a game, or Alexa, what's the weather? Or Alexa, order me an Uber. These are different learning, so we're constantly adding to it. So Alexa taking all these data, have all these endpoints between your Echo device and your Alexa. They're constantly listening and refining, understanding what people want, their needs, their desires, and developing, again, automations to respond to those. So AI is finding new ways to be deployed and new scenarios to make our lives easier, but also it's learning, is constantly learning, taking in more data about your particular needs, desires, wants at the particular time of day that you're actually doing, how frequently you're doing it. So again, it's constantly learning and improving the ability of Amazon to market, to market your data to others so they can sell better to you, but also to develop new automations to service your needs.
Yeah, there's other ways that AI, and this sounds kind of fun, but it's very profound. I don't know if anyone else who's used Alexa remembers. I think it was around Thanksgiving, the last holidays, is they allowed you to have Samuel L. Jackson as the voice for certain questions and responses. Now, it was a fun service. We played around with it a little bit, but it says something about the future of where they're going with that. The ability to tailor a special voice that encourages you to engage with Alexa even more, because you like hearing the voice. It's a voice that you're comfortable with, and that type of natural language processing and type of speech synthesis, leveraging the phonemes and the tonality of specific voices, is something I think we'll see a lot more of going forward.
Yeah, I think we just really have only seen the tip of the iceberg, right? Whether it's small business, large business. Alan, for example, even in the banking business, right? I use my credit card in the US and then I go to India for a trip and my card gets declined. Now, this happens year on year, right? So I think there's a lot of refinement that can continue to happen with the algorithm, and we're talking about large banks here. So I think it's not pervasive enough as it could be, but it will get there over time. So.
Yeah, I think I love your example. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say we've only scratched the surface. I just returned from Aruba last week and had a couple of those incidents. But you know that somewhere on the internet is a record that says that I bought a ticket and I have a reservation in another country, and there should be some type of intelligence that suggests to Citibank that that's probably okay, right? And I shouldn't necessarily stop or decline this particular transaction. So,
and our AI, at banks, our Hawk system or whatever, it's funny, we would tell customers, oh, don't worry, it'll learn. Right? We would teach it, we would say that it'll learn, it'll learn what you are doing. And it never quite learns it successfully. So just a heads up, we're definitely still working on that. We've got a few more questions from the audience. We've got 3 actually. So I'll split them up amongst you. Lester, you want to tell us a little bit about how do I implement AI and machine learning in my business?
All right, so it's a general question, but I will approach it in terms of how you might approach determining where to apply it. All businesses, whether it's a 50-cent lemonade stand or a $50 billion corporation manufacturing cell phones, have the same architecture. They all do strategy. They all strategy planning and management. They all market and develop products and services. They all do sales and customer care. They all have some kind of supply chain of how they're going to order materials for their business or parts for what they're going to assemble or distribute. And they all have a back office. And so what I would suggest to a business who was thinking about artificial intelligence is that you have a clear understanding of your goals as a business. You have a clear understanding of today's outcomes. You have a clear assessment of what capabilities in your business in those 5 categories, what are you good at? What are the strengths? What are the processes and functions in your business that are strong? And then identify what are the processes and functions that are weak or very expensive. Those are opportunities, the areas where your processes and functions are very weak or might be late or might be labor intensive in order to get them working up effectively. Those might be areas where you ought to consider leveraging machine learning or leveraging augmented intelligence in your business, because that there may be ways you can solve that problem. You can address that deficiency in a way that's not very costly, because otherwise you might have to hire 10 people in order to address that function, and a small business can rarely afford that. And so if you do that capability assessment, you can determine, you might be able to begin to point towards tools that'll help you address deficiencies or help you more effectively translate strengths into further growth for your organization.
Thank you. So I'll direct this next question from the audience to Maju. Can AI hurt my business?
Yes, in 2 ways, right? So one, first of all, by not adopting AI, now the playing field is going to have, your competitors are going to be using AI-based tools, and hence potentially low cost, potentially more efficient from an operational perspective. By not adopting AI, businesses could stand to lose out. The other thing that is, I will put out there, which is policy, which is somewhat political as well, is we all remember getting excited reconnecting with elementary school friends on Facebook, right? And over time, we all said, oh, this is great. You can just get to know so much about what's happening all over the world. Then we said, oh, well, there's a lot of information out there that's not really true, and that's actually hurting us. So it's not that different with AI. And so ethical AI is something that is being talked about a lot, and having proper policy framework from a political perspective and government perspective is very, very important. Otherwise, AI could land up hurting and creating a barrier for communities at large. Right? So that the technology could actually land up being a disadvantage to several communities. And I mean communities of, based on race, based on the type of business you're in. It could mean, very many different things.
Absolutely, from virtual redlining to just the information being collected. Recently, there was the California Privacy Act that was passed, which really affected us in banking as well as a lot of other industries, that said, hey, we don't want you collecting our data or letting us know what's going on. And it changed the way that us that aren't even in California had to change our policies to reflect what they said they wanted for their laws. And that's, again, a way that AI did become damaging to infrastructure that folks were using. So I definitely appreciate that. So we'll give you the next one. Oh, go ahead.
There's another aspect of AI that can be really nefariously dangerous. There's been studies that's demonstrated that AI is programming, and programmings are done inherently by a certain group of people who don't look like us generally. And so again, there's inherent biases that can actually be coded into algorithms, that reflect a dominant population's preferences and again, disadvantage us. So it's really important then that we think about how do we encourage, folks like us, people of color, to go into the STEM programs and who can become technologists, become programmers, to be able to code AI, and we reverse this trend toward, again, these biases inhabiting AI program and AI choices.
Can you imagine AI powered redlining?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll leave it here. You probably don't have to go too far.
Exactly.
And and to the point of coding, My kids have been coding for 2-3 years now. I send them to coding summer camps, so it's near and dear to my heart to make sure that we have some folks in the STEM arena. We have another question from the audience. That question is, what companies are the king of using AI, and most people like us don't know about them?
I can tell you, any retailer is using AI. Amazon is the king. Amazon, Facebook, they're the king of AI in terms of understanding, your preferences. If you don't believe that from a Facebook perspective, think about how often you start seeing ads and posts come to you, advertising in particular, based upon things you posted or conversations you've actually had, because there is listening going on behind some of this technology. It's AI technology. The Alexa device, the Echoes, there's AI listening for keywords and phrases around what you're doing, your engagement, your likes. And again, they're gathering that data, they're learning from it, and they're developing marketing, selling your data to marketers to market specifically to you. But most companies, not just technology companies, but again, major retailers who have an online website are using AI to improve their share of your wallet, trying to get you to buy stuff, their products and services.
Yeah, the retail industry is probably the most dominant, most known, or the industry that most of us interact with most frequently, that uses AI very effectively.
All right. We have another question in our audience here. Actually, before I get to that one, this is the next one. I'm going to, this one kind of will be towards Maju, actually. How can AI help our nonprofit organization? It seems that AI is just targeted to for-profit businesses. And this is a question near and dear to my heart as well, too, as I'm on the board of several non-for-profits.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I was asking what kind of nonprofit organization, because I don't see a nonprofit organization being very different than running a for-profit organization. You still have lead generation, you still have marketing, whether that's fundraising or something else, you have business operations. So from my perspective, I would say that everything that you would do pretty much for a for-profit organization, a lot of it could still apply to a nonprofit organization. Now, the motivations may be different, the priorities in decision making may be different, but so in this case, youth serving, senior services, etc. So you would want the word to be known, I would imagine, right, to garner more interest in the organization. So spreading the word through finding the right audience for it, that can very well be AI driven. That's one example of a use case. Then the chatbot use case, how many of us have been on websites that are extremely difficult to navigate to find anything at all, right? So you can actually use a simple version of a chatbot to help answer those questions on where to find whatever information you're looking for. You can do appointment setting using chatbots, or you can use robotic process automation for a lot of applications or application processing. So all of these aspects that are applicable to a profit-making enterprise are very much applicable to nonprofit organizations as well. I hope I've addressed your question.
Absolutely. And so for my company, at what point in time now I'm using AI that's available to me on my website. At what point in time now do I want to engage maybe an SEO service for a search engine optimization to put in tandem with that data that I've collected to try to grow my business? What's kind of the mark that you guys think we need to start enhancing the services around, building around our AI, building around our star player, if you will? So.
Yeah, and I would say the SEO first. You want someone who can help you to actually, tune your website for searches, for where it shows on pages, So having that SEO service first for that person who can provide that service to you first, and hopefully that person also understands how to leverage AI from the data from your web analytics to really improve the effectiveness of your marketing, of your reach, of your targeted reach, of your campaigns. So I think those things really do go hand in hand. But I think even without delving into AI, you need to have someone, an SEO, search engine optimization treatment of your website. So it doesn't have to be a person, but someone who understands how to, again, to really apply those techniques to your website, your web marketing efforts.
All right. Anybody else, any comments on that? All right, we'll move on to the next question. Is there a way that the chamber can use AI to help grow their member business? I'm a chairman of a chamber of commerce, so this is near and dear to my heart as well too.
That's an interesting question because I'm also part of a nonprofit that focuses on economic development. It's not quite a chamber, but we do the same thing. There's a wealth of information and data on the common problems that small businesses face. There's a lot of intelligence out there about that. There's a lot of intelligence out there about the best practices of how small businesses address those issues. And so I think there are probably some opportunities to leverage AI-based tools to gather some of that intelligence and on behalf of the member businesses based on the industries where they play. And how do we gather that kind of intelligence? Because one of the things I've observed coming from AT&T and coming from Motorola, we had very large market research and market intelligence departments. We had very deep pockets to buy any research report that we could ever want. Small businesses need all of that type of information, but they can't afford those research reports. And so I think that chambers can leverage their scale and being part of that chamber community to try to mine that data for best practices for common problems that are faced by the small businesses in their industries.
I think you touch on such a great point, Lester. I work for the biggest bank in the world, Citibank, and I got to tell you, when we had our search engines, that if your name existed, whether it was here, whether it was India, whether it was in Poland or anywhere, you were in that system. Whether you had a bank account in your life or never had one, you were in that system. So, definitely being able to translate some of that information over to that nonprofit space to do some economic development matters so much, or at least being able to get the access to what you can. So let's see what other questions we have. Okay. Yeah, actually, that's all of our questions from the audience. So, panelists, I'll give you a few seconds each to kind of talk about your closing remarks and so forth. We'll start off with ladies first.
Yeah, so I would encourage small businesses, particularly to explore AI. What I would say is that if you looked at the industry like 20 years ago, or the world in general 20 years ago, there were technology companies and there were other businesses. Now, every business today is a technology business because technology can be a differentiator. And if you don't leverage it, you could really lose out, right? So, I would really encourage AI is not as expensive or unreachable as one may think. I think it's part of our everyday life, and I would encourage exploring AI to grow your company and make it a differentiator for you.
Love it. Ralph?
Yeah, I echo what Madhu said. Absolutely, AI. Every company is an AI company, or technology. Every company is a technology company, and this goes to, we look at the four dominant technologies that are in use today: cloud, mobile, social, and big data. And those all really are the foundations that allow us to leverage AI. So again, as you start to understand, if you're going to be in business today, if you don't want to be disrupted, I don't care how small you are, then you need to understand how to leverage these technologies and as a foundation for things like AI. So again, and the great thing is that these things are affordable. The cloud and cloud technology have made these things affordable. No longer do you have to have the major investments in technologies and data centers that we used to have. Now we, on a subscription basis, we can have access to the very technologies that large organizations actually use. And we can become now competitive. So digital technology is a game changer. It's an equalizer. So all businesses can actually become much more competitive, have wider reach, achieve scale faster with less cost than we used to, than old style businesses, traditional businesses. So it's imperative for small businesses, Black small businesses, brown small businesses to become digital businesses.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Lester, the floor is yours.
Well, I'll close with a couple of the implications of artificial intelligence to a chamber of commerce or any municipality. There are two categories. And I'll start with something my mom and dad used to tell me. My dad, Lester McCarroll Sr., used to tell me, boy, you don't get paid for thinking. Well, once I became an engineer, that's exactly what I get paid to do. Everybody on this screen is part of you or a knowledge manager, right? You get paid for thinking. That's what you do. So there are implications for the labor force as artificial intelligence continues to proliferate, as applications and use cases begin to scale and grow. And chambers ought to be looking for how AI serves its businesses, but we also have to be looking at the labor implications and what do we do to replace or retrain knowledge workers, lawyers, engineers, and everybody who's making decisions and planning and forecasting today. And as AI becomes stronger, what do we do about that? So that's a grand challenge that we're going to have. And the second one, I think about, I was talking about during the sound check, I talked about movies like 2001, where Hal, the intelligent agent, kind of began to do some things that were nefarious. You think about movies like War Games and Skynet, right? Now those are kind of very far-fetched, fantastical treatments of the perils of AI, but there are some real world protections that we have to put in place as these types of agents begin to proliferate. And Ralph touched on one, the fact that many of the cyber attacks we experience today are AI bots. They are bots, okay? And so cybersecurity has to become much more effective, much more evolved in order to protect against artificial intelligence agents as we move forward, so that we can prevent, the Earth becoming controlled by Skynet.
I think we all.
I say that 50% in jest.
Only 50, which will bring me to my final remarks. And thank you for leading in with the parents, because my mother told me something since I was in second grade. And she said, computers are the future. I'm a pretty old guy. So, imagine when she was saying this, and she would tell me computers are the future. And with that, the last thing that I'll say or get into is, what does the future of AI potentially look like for us? What is the future of how wild can we get? How more can Siri develop? How more can, every day I'm getting an email from Xfinity saying, hey, you have a new voice remote command that you can do. How far can we take AI? And can we take it too much? Can we take it too far as we're thinking about it? And, to give you a bit of a scary Hal type fact or Skynet thing, I have a client who was so excited as he was sending in his patent. He came to the bank to send off his money and so forth, where he was developing virtual buildings. He's an architect, but he's developing virtual buildings. So when we had the pandemic, you would literally in the future click on these things and you would walk like you're going down the street and create such an experience. You go into the building, you go up to your floor, go up to wherever it is in a virtual space and interact that way as well too. So be ready for this beautiful future of AI that we have coming, whatever that may be. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Emily Butler Ferguson to give us her closing comments.
All I can say is, wow, this panel was absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate you. Just tons of great information. I just want to give you some information on next events. We have, as the Quad County Chamber, a golf outing coming up. Now, we've been talking about artificial intelligence, but sometimes when we're belly to belly, we can get other types of intelligence. And the golf course is instrumental for people getting together and sharing information that you might not get otherwise. So if I were you, I would sign up for the Quad County Golf Classic. It is not only for your benefit, but also to benefit the students. This is a fundraiser. It's a scholarship fundraiser for the chamber because we definitely want to invest in the future. And of course, our children are the future. So the event is Saturday, August 14th. And it is at Orchard Valley Golf Course. And it is early bird. Is early bird over? I'm not sure. They might
No,
make an
yeah,
exception.
that's fine.
Oh, great. All right. All right. Early bird is $120. Now, if you're just interested in dinner, that's $55. But you might as well take advantage of the whole thing, right? Come on out. It'll be a great day, I'm sure. And you'll be able to golf, get some information, hobnob, get together with other business owners and share tips, tactics, and techniques. So we'll look to see you there.
Fantastic. Well, also, I want to mention also to our next webinar, which is going to be on, if I can pull that up for you, is going to be on Wednesday, June 30th. And it's a part of our Business Insight series. And that is, the second one is going to be how businesses obtain credit. And that's going to be presented by our own board member, Ms. Lorena Lapastida. She's Vice President, Branch Manager, Aurora Bank and Trust, a Wintrust Community Bank. And that will be Wednesday, June 30th from 11 a.m. to 12:15. How businesses obtain credit. You can register at our website, as you can see there on the flyer. And then the third in that series will be Thursday, November 18th, how businesses use credit. And this is something that we try to make sure that our members and just the general community, those who are growing their businesses, how they can work with banks and how they can be able to be more successful in being able to move forward, especially when you're talking about access to capital. What are some of the things you need to make sure that you're ready to be able to take advantage of that? So again, we want to thank our panel, our panelists, and also all of you who joined us this evening. Again, I'm Sherman Jenkins, Chairman of the Board, Quad County African American Chamber. And we want to thank all of you for what you provided tonight. I think a lot of people saw this as being very informative. And also those who missed it, you can tell your friends, they can go to our website and see the recording of it, as well as going on to our YouTube channel, Quad County African American Chamber, and taking advantage and looking at it there. So we are, again, very appreciative, and we want to thank everyone, and we want to hope that everyone have a wonderful evening. And again, thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your evening.